He probably slept in the sukkah when it's like 30 below.
Regular.
You got the costume.
30 below. When is it 30 below in Toronto? In New York.
Fine. Want some soup? Okay, the rub is on, so we have to go. I'm going to start and we're going to switch. Okay, thank you. Rabbi Lois here makes it official.
I wasn't sure what to expect.
And so I'd like to welcome everybody to Sudas Hodaah Thanksgiving dinner 5782. Rashi says on the pasuk of Mishte Gadol that what made it a big Mishte was not the carving station or the tent rental or the serving of every barn animal, although we do know that Avram was quite a brilliant caterer, but rather what made it a Mishte Gadol was by those who attended. Shem and Aver, I'm sure Mamre came, he also got a kibbut, for sure he got a nomination. Similarly, what makes this Suda special is the attendance of all of you, and of course, the Rav as well. This week's Parsha takes place around Pesach time, so I thought how appropriate would be to first welcome all of you, Kol Dichvin, followed by, I forgot to bring my oxygen tank here, Keholach Manya. I'll bring it out as a prop a little bit later.
Okay.
I know if you want you can get that, sure. I'm no longer attached to it. And finally, Dayenu, the list of thank yous that are a long time coming. I'd like to thank the doctors and nurses at Mount Sinai, Dr. Lyons and his team at COVID Care at home for at Women's College. I'd also like to thank Dr. Ron and Dr. Lauren Langer. I always thought that being the Rav is the hardest job in shul. Then I got involved a little bit and I realized that a Gabbai's job is not so easy either, but a medical director during a pandemic takes the cake. Okay. I also like a special thank you to Dr. Aaron Weitz, chiropractor par excellence, for speeding along the recovery, proving that often the refuah and the trufa lie all within. All you need is a few shakes and buzzes to get them out. I'd like to thank Hatzalah and Bikur Cholim, organizations that simply just do it. And thank you to the Kehillah Kedosha Beis Medrash Agudas Chesed Mika Amcha Yisrael, who not only put up with my Mishigasin and off-the-wall ideas over the years, but many of you thought that maybe I was pulling a prank, maybe a color war-like breakout, or to increase the ratings of Zoom. But you texted and emailed and of course visited. And Beroishim, by example, I have to thank the Rav Shlita for all the Tehillim that you said on my behalf, and all of the Chaylim. I heard a story recently that someone called the Rav, and anyone who listens to the Rav on Zoom knows how often his phone rings and rings and rings. Did the Rav hear that? I'm sure the Rav's okay.
No, the phone is ringing.
Okay, he's getting it. And the Rav said, I'm going to say Tehillim right now for this person. When the person called back to update the situation to the Rav said, I said Tehillim. It didn't work, it wasn't resolved. And the Rav reminds us and reminded us today that tefillas work. And I quote, if you didn't daven yet, you didn't do anything. I'd like to thank Rabbi Yossi Simon, who prepares a shiur laden daily with delicacies and sweetens the grind of the daf with his smile.
Twice daily.
What's that? Twice daily, right. I forgot the remedial at 9 o'clock. With his humor, inclusiveness, and thank you for truly formulating a serum of life as Samachayim. To all the participants of the daf, keep bringing your personalities and idiosyncrasies and your pre-existing notions and bias to the shiur. It is amazing to see how you throw your knowledge into the Gemara and see the puzzling looks on how to make sense of it all. To all my chaverim who prepared food, from chocolate cakes to egg salad, to baking challah, to worrying about the kids, this trench warfare we call life, is there really a better platoon to be in? Thank you to those who understood what to say and what I needed to hear. To the neighbors, the Pomerantzes, the Spiegels, Lazars, and the Hymans who all went above and beyond. I don't know why Regina is not the most sought-after block or an address like Hillmount or Park Place. If streets were a Monopoly game, we'd be a red card for sure, at least Illinois Avenue. To my extended family in Israel and in Australia, who I haven't heard from in years, all of a sudden texted and called. Almost worth getting hospitalized so I get to contact the cousins.
Maybe that's out there in the will.
To my sisters and brothers, Yisrael and Kuty, and their families, and my dear Pearl and Miriam, nephews and nieces, my stepmom, your love and care and concern is deeply true and touching. To my dear children, Avi, Ephraim, Princess, baby Esther, Shmuel Ezra, and the junior division, Sephora, Yehuda, and Sarah, who behaved so nicely while I was on the DL. Keep it up now, too. And finally, the Shliach of Hashem, an angel of mercy, cloaked as my Eshes Chayil wife, who kept up a smiling exterior. When I want to look at the camera, do I look straight at it?
Look straight ahead.
Okay. Kept up a smiling exterior while I was in the hospital, and then for 2.5 months, set up caregiving at home. What an ordeal. You shone like a bright star, delivering hope, care, compassion, and devotion, managing the Medicare of the hospitals, and then turning our home into managing the Medicare at the hospitals, and then turning our home into a rehab center when I returned. And not once, when you called, did you ever show that you were distraught. The daily packages smuggled in along with the food from Bikur Cholim, the notes, the chocolates, and even the nail clippers. Ois v'hoder levusha, your courage in a difficult time is remembered and revered. And if you don't believe me, just tune into the CBC. While I was in the hospital, I had opportunity to think and reflect. But I didn't. I try to catch up on shtisel, on what's going on at work and at shul. But there were moments of lucidity. And that may be this is a sports metaphor coming, be careful. While I was in the hospital, is this my last at bat? Is this my 2-minute drill? Maybe I just need a couple scores just to cover the spread, if not win outright. I'm thankful for Hashem for sending me, all of you and others on a daily basis to carry messages of hope and encouragement and loving kindness. I can honestly say that I live life in appreciation of it. I always felt blessed on a daily basis, Shloimi. What can I do for Klal Yisrael today? What I don't do enough of is express hakaras hatov and brachas to all of you for providing support and encouragement. You weren't here, A.B. I was going to say a line about how you pushed me to golf, even though I wasn't ready. So as it's my birthday, by the power invested in me by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I give each of you a bracha for Yeshua, Refuah, Shidduchim, Parnasa, Bekol Tuv, Mikol Tuv, B'toich Menucha, V'archavas, spiritual and physical bank, the Hadas. Thank you.
Amen.
At this point, I know, Kuty, I had you on a schedule. Let the Rav speak first, and then we'll hear from my brother, okay? So, Rabbi Lowy, if you're ready, go ahead.
Hello, good to luck, everyone. Good to luck, Akiva. And the thing of Hodaah, Arba Tzvichim La'Hodaahs. You know, Zechiv, in a Torah, there'll be a Beis Hamikdash now. You would have to go bring a carbon Toida for the Rebbeinu Shalom. And the interesting thing is, by carbon Toida, there's 40 breads that have to be eaten, and all have to be eaten in one day and one night. And the Mefarshim will explain the reason. So a person, when the Rebbeinu Shalom does a chesed and nace with him, the main thing is Yoidu Shem Chazim V'Oisav L'Bnei Adam, like we say in Hodaah every Friday evening, that you have to spread the neflois of the Rebbeinu Shalom L'Bnei Adam. This year of the pandemic, anyone who walked into a hospital, you were just nervous hearing that somebody's in the hospital. And Baruch Hashem, you know, Akiva went through what he had to go through, and Baruch Hashem, he could get up now. Yoidel Hashem Chazda, he could thank the Rebbeinu Shalom for the Chasadim Mamish. We see the Chasadim, going and go announce it to everybody. That's what the Rebbeinu Shalom wants. The Rebbeinu Shalom, the purpose of Akiva going through, since Akiva is so popular by everybody, And so I feel bad that he had to go through what he went through. But Rabbi Shem wanted Akiva to be the one who through zoom into everyone's heart and tell them, look what Rabbi Shem did for me. And look what the Nissim that Rabbi Shem did. The person, the seer, anyone who had a hard time breathing, he was so nervous going into the hospital, hard time breathing, we don't know how it's going to end. And Baruch Hashem, Rabbi Shem helped that Akiva came out first with some oxygen at home. And Baruch Hashem now, he's free of that. But now the main thing is that he was able to continue a whole time to thank Rabbi Shalom. So the Medrash brings down and tell him that if someone gives Hodaah to Rabbi Shalom, then they'll be Moida Rabbi Shalom more times. But the bracha is always the Hodaah should not have to come through Yisurim. The Hodaah should not have to come to give Hodaah for everything. Like the Ramban writes, from the Nissim Geluyim, you see the Nissim Nistorim. Every second we live in this world, walking around, is Nissim. Really, like it's all called Elikim. Teva is Nissim. And really, everything is an ace. Everything is an ace. The only thing we call Nissim, something that we aren't used to. But anything that fire is burning is an ace. Anything, the whole world is an S. And we only realize that when things don't go naturally, then you start realizing the Nissim that we have every day. And that's why we make the bracha, Roifekal Basar and Mapli Lassos. The Beinishleim, the flaws of the Bayrei of the Bria, anyone who studies the human body, the anatomy, I mean, we don't even know every molecule and every nerve and every ending that have the cells that make up a human being. And nowadays, we see from, if you study a little science, it's unbelievable the flaws of Bayrei in the human being, starting from the top to the bottom, the brain, the heart, and every single part of the body that we don't, some parts we don't even know exist. We only find out they exist. But Baruch Hashem, and the scare of the pandemic, anyone who came out after that and could go and give Hodaah to Rabbi Shalom and pronounce Rabbi Shalom Hodaah Hashem Ki Toiv Ki Elolam Chazdei. Akiva is standing now in the day of his birthday, which is the day of his mazel. The day of the birthday is a special mazel, like we mentioned this morning. It's special mazel, a special Yud Zayin Cheshvan is the day that the Mabel started, and the Mabel started. The purpose of the Mabel was not the Mabel. The purpose was to bring the world afterwards to the right tikkun after the year of the Mabel, and then the world started again. And Kol Yisrael came out of that. Sorry, Doris, Menoyach ad Avram, the 10 Doris that came, and then Avram Avinu, and this is the whole tachlis of the world. It's Kol Yisrael. Everything we have in the world is only the purpose of the whole world is Kol Yisrael. So to stand on a day like Yud Zayin Cheshvan, and stand on a day that our beloved Akiva, we blessed Rabbi Shalom that you were born this day. Baruch Hashem that we had someone like Akiva born this day, someone who really cares about everyone, cares about Kol Yisrael, cares about the Rabbi Shalom, cares to be ehrlich and to cut and to light, to do what Rabbi Shalom wants and could help people go out of the way, every way to help the Rabbi Shalom, help that this day should be a day that you should continue to be Moida Rabbi Shalom, Masachah, Shulhaleis, Erev Vayker, Tzarayim, at night, in the morning, all the tefillas, everything. We should always be able to get together, Akiva, with you, with Simcha, dance with you, with Simcha. I would love to be there physically dancing with you in a day like to thank the Rabbi Shalom that Akiva, you're healthy, you're back with us in a healthy way. Rabbi Shalom, that you should continue to have nachas together with your wife, from Allah, from all your children, nachas from your kehillah, nachas from the kehillah of Toronto, Kol Yisrael. Should be zoicha to see together with Kol Yisrael and the Bias and Mashiach Meher B'Yameinu, to be zoicha to see Kol Yisrael come, and that's what you're waiting the whole time. On Imam, we want Mashiach now. We want Mashiach now. We waited for everything. That we should be zoicha to see the Bias and Mashiach, and now at Matzah Shabbos when everything is done, we sing there, Bias and Mashiach. That we should be zoicha through this Hodaah. Rabbi Hashem, look, we appreciate everything you do for us. Just bring Mashiach and you'll see how the whole world will start dancing. Everyone will start dancing and thanking you for what you're doing for us the whole time and what you'll do for us. Should be zoicha together with Akiva and his whole family, and be zoicha to see the V'yas HaGoyel B'Meher B'Yameinu.
Give me got one convert, you see.
Akiva.
Must be 57.
Thank you.
57.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Akiva.
Yeah. Okay,
Today's
Kuty.
also your English birthday.
Yeah, because it's 19. It's divisible by 19.
You're only 38? 38. You're only 38?
Okay, Kuty, you're up. Go ahead.
Get them off
Go ahead.
Kuty.
Put the clock on.
Akiva.
You're
on mute. You're on mute.
Still hasn't picked up.
Oh, now you tell me. I'm glad you told me before.
Why'd you tell him?
Yeah.
It's amazing that we're sitting here and then this is a joyous moment. It's only until Rabbi Lowy spoke that, or just really this Shabbos, I really recognize Yud Zayin Cheshvan. It's a part of the daf that we just learned that Yud Zayin Cheshvan is really, besides Akiva's birthday, but it's monumental, no pun intended, that it was also the Mabul. But there's one other thing. So we have to bring Noach into this discussion here, but it's also precious Vayera, so we have to bring in Avraham. There's another thing that's reminiscent to Noach in this birthday, which I'm sure Akiva just recited yesterday as the first time. What is it, Akiva?
Oh, the Tehillim?
There you go, Kapitel.
Nunches.
Yes. So that's Noach. So it's really, we bring together Noach and Akiva's Tehillim that he left here Pesach time before he ended up in the hospital. He left it on whatever day it was in Chol HaMoed Pesach, and his sitter was here and he was sick. Inspired me from that point on to say Tehillim every day. And Akiva, you should just know that that's still continuing, and that's how I know what day it is today. Today's Yud Cheshvan. It's not Yud Zayin, but it's October 23rd. So, but 57 years is like every 19 years it's supposed to coincide. I don't know what happened, but I guess that's a part of the Mabul. But anyway, that's the Bilbul, right? So, so how do we bring Noach and Avraham into both things? We know that Noach was a tzaddik, he was a tamim, he was Misalech el Elokim, Misalech Noach. But what happened? 120 years he was building the teva, and how many people was he mekarev? Can we have how many people? Ephraim, how many people was he mekarev in 120 years? 0. I don't know. I think it was 0. Because he only ended up with his family on the teva and everybody else died. Avraham Avinu, which is Akiva's bar mitzvah parsha, on the other hand, people were just attracted to him by the droves, similar to how the Rav explained Akiva's personality. People just, and as I grew up, oh, are you Akiva's brother? No matter where I am, I could be in Baltimore, I can be in Hawaii, I can be in Los Angeles, I can be in Eretz Yisrael, I could be wherever I am. Are you Akiva's brother? So that is Shmai Hailach Lefanav, and this was Avraham Avinu's Kayach. What was Avraham Avinu? Hikir Boirei. What's a Boirei? Hikir Boirei. It says Hikir. He recognized. It doesn't say Yodas Boirei. Hikir. The stronger. Recognize. What did he recognize? Hikir Boirei. What's a Boirei? He's a manhig. He's the Boirei or manhig es ha'olam. What's a manhig? Think of it as like a pilot of an airplane. That is the Eivishter. Eivishter is flying an airplane. I use airplane because that's what Balters use as a method of communicating with each other. And there's a pilot, and everybody has, and this is what Avraham Avinu recognized, that the Eivishter was the manhig. And once Avraham Avinu was recognized that Hikir is Boirei, and he knew it, the difference between Noach and Avraham. And that is why Precious Vayera falls on the anniversary of the Mabul. is that if Avraham Avinu was, maybe we can say that if Avraham Avinu was around during the time of the Mabul may not have happened. And it's almost like a tikkun. Avraham Avinu was like the tikkun of Noach, because on the other hand, Noach was miktane amana, but Avraham Avinu was, just thinking, hearing through the Akedah, how a person can just give up his son, a son that he davened for 100 years. He was davening for a child. He was hoping. And Hashem says, go. And not only did he go, he went with Yashkem Avraham Balter. Was in the morning. He woke up 6 a.m., 5 a.m. Oh, let's go. It's not like, I'll get there. And even when he as he's walking, the Satan is trying to stop him. He is full charge ahead. And then even when he finally does the whole Mahalach, Mom says, stop, don't go anymore. And he brings an oil instead. He brings an oil. He wants to bring the oil to the Eibishter. He is one. He is miyached the Eibishter. And that is yichud shemei shamayim. What's to be Mekadesh Shem Shemaim. How are you Mekadesh Shem Shemaim? You're Miyachid. You're saying, Hashem, you're Echad. You are the manhig. Whatever you do, I'm mevatel my das. I'm mevatel my whole life is the Eibishter. Is giving up all of Klal Yisrael, Yitzchak Avinu on the Akedah. That is the Hikir Boira. He knew the Ratzon, the Eibishter. He knew it, and that is what. And people were driven. Once a person really believes in himself, he believes in certain something. That's why the best lawyer is someone who really believes you. Somebody who really believes that you didn't cheat on your taxes. Somebody who really believes that this robbery didn't take place. He is the best kind of lawyer to talk out and speak out on your behalf. That is what the Eibishter needed in this world, and people were amazed. Wow, there is an Eibishter. He saw a bira, and he said somebody had to build it. Somebody had to make this world. This world didn't come from nowhere. And this is exactly what the koyach of Avraham Avinu had, that gathered people left, right, and center. Am Rav, he became Av Hamayin Goyim. He was not only the Av of, I didn't really study what he was Av Hamayin Goyim, but I know Yishmael, that's the whole fight in Yerushalayim over who is in charge of Har Maria. But I don't understand the question because it was Yitzchak who was on top of it, but that's for another question. But the bottom line is Avram just made the Eibishter known. And so, and this is what so now getting back to the airplane, what's a manhig? A person who recognizes that the Eibishter runs the world. So if you're put in economy and you're put in the middle seat in front of two very big people and you're squeezed in between, that is your tafkid in your life. Eibishter gives a tafkid to every single person. And in this world, we have to recognize that certain people will live on Hillmount and some people will live on Glencairn or whatever other park place. And you're on Regina Avenue, wherever your seat is on in the airplane. It's the flower garden that you plant in front of it. It's the amount of people that you constantly are attracted to. The people who you give over the Torah, you give over your Avas Yisrael. What is Ava? V'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha. We talk about v'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha so many times that it seems unfathomable. How do you like somebody when you don't like yourself? V'ahavta l'reacha kamoicha. Let's work on kamoicha. Akiva, your kamoicha, you're so given to everybody else. Your kamoicha that's what Ava is just. You're loved by everyone because you have your ava with yourself. You're comfortable with who you are, what the Eibishter gave you. Whatever seat in economy, some people sit in first in business. They may not be even happy. You're stuck wherever you are in economy. You make it a beautiful place. You make it a comfortable environment. You're always besimcha. You never judge anybody. But that is your attraction. And that is why wherever I walk, are you related to Akiva? Are you Akiva's brother? How are you related? There's a Balter in Toronto. Yeah, it's Akiva. I'm sorry, Yisrael. But anyway, so the point of it is that this is why you were born in Parshas Vayera. Yisrael was also born in Parshas Vayera. But that's for a different party. Anyway, So Akiva, you were born on the day of the Mabul, and this is what you were like the tikkun of the Mabul, and this is what you carry with yourself. The love that every Yid has towards Akiva is incredible. Why? Because he is Einem mit Eibishter. Whatever it is, he'll give the shirt off his back, whatever it takes. Whenever I have some issue and I call him, he is amazing. He gets it right on. He's so not, he does not judge anybody. He is Ibergegeben, he is forgiving whatever person is benched with, and that is the Hanhaga of Avraham Avinu, that everybody has a tafkid in this world, and everybody has their seat in their airplane. You have to be happy with what you have, and whatever chilek you have in the airplane, whatever your assigned seat is, that is yours. Don't look at somebody else. When you're happy with your seat, you'll be happy with everybody who is seated anywhere else in the plane, be it in first class business or in a window. Even if you're stuck in the middle row, it doesn't matter. You realize this is your tafkid, and that's how you take your life. And the amount of tefillos when you're in the hospital, and how the outpouring of tefillos and love and the hava that was coming forth, and the caring. I wasn't there, but I only heard it through WhatsApp and whatever it was, but it was unbelievable. And that's what we are here today to thank the Eibishter who cares for you so much, for you to recover from this kind of disease that has strewn the entire world into such bilbo like the Mabul, but into such chaos, in a chaotic state. That's for another speech of what Corona has done is divide people, and everybody anti this, anti that. We should just accept everybody, whatever it is, it's fine. Just work on yourself. And that's what Akiva is. He is the medium of all views, and he takes it all and he makes it sound like you're on his side. And it's amazing. He always is siding with whatever you're talking. You won't really know what he personally says, but that is the form of view. And that is your koyach, that people feel that you are a part of them. And you really do. And that is the koyach of Avraham Avinu. And I bench you up, Akiva, at me'ah ve'esrim. You should keep being kind and nefashas, to be mekarif nefashas, and to be makir bayroi, and recognize and be able to bring Mashiach Tzidkenu b'karif.
Thank you very much. Thank you. A little bit more, and then wow, Kuty, thank you. Wow. I hope that was only mixas shvachai.
That was only Kanyach, I think.
It only wasn't even fun.
Okay, we're going to hear briefly, I hope, from Ephraim.
He's on.
There you go, Ephraim.
He's muted.
Everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, we do.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. All right. Well, it's good to see everyone. Thanks for coming. There's in this week's Haftarah, there's two stories mentioned in this week's Haftarah. The connection of the second story to the Sedra is self-understood. Elisha is promising the Isha Shunamis, a son. The Malachim giving Avram and Sarah the same bracha, the same promise. In fact, much of the same verbiage is even used. It says, Lamoye, it's Ka'ishchaya. The second story, we understand very clearly what the shaykhis is with this week's parsha. However, the first one, it would seem, doesn't have much connection to the Sedra. For those who are at Kiddush Club, the first story is Avadia's widow is crying to Elisha. During his lifetime, Elisha had borrowed exorbitant amounts of money to build and support a couple of underground yeshivas for Nevi'im to be able to study to become Nevi'im. They were underground yeshivas because Achav's wife, Queen Yezebel, had them outlawed under the pain of death. No one was allowed to study to become a Navi. This is somewhat awkward, seeing as that Ovadiah's creditor was none other than Achav's son, Prince Yehoram. So this just comes to show that blood might be thicker than water, but for the royal family, apparently dough was thicker than blood. And now, Avadi had passed on, and the loans are due with much accrued interest. She comes crying to Elisha as Yehoram threatens that if she will continue to default, he'll conscript her 2 sons as slaves. So the rest of the story, by now you probably remember it. She only has a small jug of oil. Elisha tells her, borrow vessels of all sorts from her neighbors, privately fill them up with a small jug, and sell the oil as a profit. And so she does. It's a great, amazing story, but in what way does it connect to our Sedra? So there is a fantastic corollary, but in order to understand it, we must first don 3D glasses and look at the story al pi pnimius ha'inyanim. The woman crying out to Elisha is representative of a Yiddish neshama crying out due to its distance from the Eibishter, an intense, bitter cry. It says, Vayi Isha Achas. Isha is Oisius Eish Hei, the neshama. Meneshei Bnei HaNaviim. Similar to a Navi, comes from Lashon Nivs of Asayim. A Navi is a kli for the Eibishter's word, the Eibishter's message. Every neshama is a kli kibul for Gilei Elikut. Tzoaka El Elisha is crying out to Elisha, representing the Eibishter. Keli Shav, the Eibishter should turn to me. Lamar, what is she saying? Avdacha Ishi Meis. Ishi, my fire, my passion with which I would do mitzvahs to serve the Eibishter is gone. I have no geschmack in doing mitzvahs. The Yiddish neshama is crying out. It's stuck down here in a ghost, and for whatever reason the person is distant from the Eibishter, there's no passion when they're doing the mitzvahs. The Hanoisha is Moshe Nashani Elikim, is the Yetzer Hara, the Nefesh HaBahamis. Has come to take my children, my Ahavas L'Shem, my Yeres L'Shem, my Dechilu Rochimu, has come to take them as slaves. I'm drowning, I'm empty, I'm being sucked in and entirely over to the side of the Sitra Achra. That I'm losing my connection entirely with the Eibishter. So by Elisha, what does Elisha say? What do you have? And she says, I have nothing left, just one small jug of oil, the etzem haneshama, the pintaliyid. That's all I got left. My Havir, my sons they're on their way out. What does he say? Go borrow vessels from outside, from all your neighbors. Kalim reikim al tamiti, kalim reikim, empty vessels. That means do the mitzvahs, push the mitzvahs without feeling. And to be misplaining on the fact that these mitzvahs are the Eibishter's Ratzon, and you're doing them emptily, that you're carrying out the tzivah of the Melech Malchei Amlachim, and so disconnected. And again, to do it privately, to sit and be misplaining on the fact that you're distant from the Eibishter. And from this you'll have a Yisra Na'or Min HaChoshe. You'll be able to become inspired and to sell the oil at a profit and to be able to satiate your creditor. The Atu Banayach Tichi Banoiser and the Etzem Neshama, the Pintal Yid, the Ba'at, you, the Etzem Neshama, the Ubanayach, and again the Avavir should be ablaze, and the Avavir should be B'Takot Hashemers, and the Pintal Yid should be ablaze. So now the connection to this week's parsha is self-understood. Avraham Avinu begins his life post Bris Milah. He's now carried out a mitzvah of the Eibishter, beginning an intimate, deep relationship with the Eibishter and enabling the Eibishter's literal revelation in this physical realm. Passing on this Pintal Yid, this ability and responsibility for his children to all generations to come, is the Chiddush of Parshas Vayei or over Parshas Lech Lecha. And that's the avodah that we take with us as we go forward from here. L'chaim and a good tavach.
Very nice. I want to hear it. The picture needs a frame. So finish, continue. He wants to go on the trip. Where is it again?
the last time we saw it?
Same one?
Last time we heard we were still. Last time you guys.
Son, do you need help?
No, it didn't go in. Right. Now it's just spinning.
After half an hour, he walked out with the card. With the card.
No, it's not. It
Hey,
didn't.
what were you waiting for? Oh, we got the card before he got the shot.
Have a look. He's calling me.
My card, I got when I sat down to get the job. Ready? Same time. It's my handwriting. The card's in my handwriting. I mean, the medical part is not, but my name is in my handwriting. Yeah. They gave you a relative link. You couldn't fill it in yourself. The same CDC card. Justin Lumsden had the same thing.
Walgreens. This is from outside house.
Yeah, they fill it. You had Walgreens? You had the same? No, one I did here. One did a Walgreens.
Hi.
In fact, even Walgreens has a record, no? Yeah, they have a record. They even merged on the same record. They merged the first time to Shalom. In your book. I'm sure that they hold the Kaplan.
Maybe something happened starting still rolling along.
Maybe it's what I heard with time. I thought
Your head table's bad enough. The introduction also.
Later I walked.
All right, Yidl L'chaim. L'chaim. Es brengt sich that Motzei Shabbos is a minute to tell a story of the Baal Shem Tov. As I brengt sich. There's Lavdavkas attached to this. There's 3 Lavdavkas. Lavdavka the Baal Shem Tov, Lavdavka Skula Parnosa, Lavdavka Motzei Shabbos. So, but Apol Pikim with all the Lavdavkas. This is Dav Shazayim. So the story goes that the Alter Rebbe, the Baal Tanya, was supposed to visit a town in Russia which is called Homel, or Gomel. Today it's known as Gomel. And there was a certain day the Alter Rebbe was supposed to arrive, and a big crowd came to greet Alter Rebbe, but he didn't come. He stood there a whole day, they waited by the opening of the city, he didn't come. And the next day, Shlita Heit Alter Rebbe came to Shul. So they Alter Rebbe, what happened? The message came, Alter Rebbe said it was vorgestellt there will come a whole delegation, and he didn't want to see it, so maybe he came quietly the next day. A few hours after the Alter Rebbe arrived, there was a tumult in the city that a fire broke out. And in those days, a fire was serious problems. You couldn't call the local fire department. And sometimes fires would ravage like an entire township. So they told the Alter Rebbe that there's a fire. And the Alter Rebbe came out where the Beis Medrash, or the house that he was. And the fire could be seen from a distance. And the Alter Rebbe looked very, very strong at the fire. And as the Alter Rebbe was looking at the fire, a wind began to blow. And the fire blew in a different direction. Blew down, ended up in the river, and shortly afterward the fire was over. The next day the Jewish community got a message from the Poretz, from the squire, the duke, the ruler of whatever it is. In those days these people had little fiefdoms, they had their own little private armies. That he wants to come and, you heard this rabbi's in town, he wants to come and, he would like to meet him. So the Alter Rebbe said, if he wants to meet me, he can come to Shul. If he wants to see me, he can come here. So they said, the Alter Rebbe said, if you want to see him, you can come to Shul. So the next day, after davening, the Poretz is waiting outside Beis Medrash. There's an old man. He was waiting by his wagon. The Alter Rebbe came to the door. He walked over to the Alter Rebbe. And he said to the Alter Rebbe, "You're still alive?" So the Alter Rebbe said, "No. It's the Rebbe of my Rebbe." "Ah," he said. "Ah. Okay. I wanted to see, and he left. So they came to the Alter Rebbe and said, "What happened there? Something wasn't an exchange. Is it you? It's still you? You're still alive?" "No, it's not me." "What is this?" So the Alter Rebbe told him the following story. The father of this Poretz was an officer in the Tsar's army. And the Tsar's army at a certain point was stationed near Mezhibush for maneuvers. Some kind of conflict going on, and they were involved in training exercises. And because it was war, so the post wasn't normal, wasn't regular, and he was there for an extended period of time. And he didn't hear anything back from Homel where his wife was. And he had left his wife pregnant. And now it's a few months later, and the post is not working. He's not getting any messages, and he was very concerned. This officer came to the tailor, local tailor, to fix his uniform. Some buttons missing. And the tailor was a Yid. The tailor noticed that he was very distraught. So he got into that conversation. He says, "You look very distraught. You look very uneasy. What's bothering you?" So the Paretz, his father was also a Paretz, was an officer in the Tsar's army, high-ranking officer. He said that, I'm also a Paretz in my other life. I have a palace and whatever. I left my wife, and I haven't heard from her. I'm very concerned. I don't know what's going on. So the Yid said, there's a Rebbe here in town, in Mezhebush. Everybody says he's a miracle worker. Maybe we'll see. Maybe he can help you. See, Hashem can see things. So this fellow came to the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov told him to go to the window and to look at the window. And the Baal Shem Tov said, "What do you see?" So he said, I don't know, it's very strange. I see myself, I'm seeing Mezhebush now like what we would call today a drone. I says, "Good." And as he's standing by the window, the Baal Shem Tov says, "What do you see now?" He said, I'm moving over the countryside. A drone flight. After a Meshach Zman, the Baal Shem Tov said to Nu, "What do you see?" He said, "I see my house. I see my palace." And it's coming closer. And the Baal Shem Tov said to him, "Do you hear anything?" He said he hears the servants are speaking amongst each other. "Congratulations, that the Paretz's wife just had a baby boy." So the Baal Shem Tov, that was the end of his vision. He didn't see anything after that. And he left. The Paretz said, "I am that baby boy. And I always heard the story from my father. And yesterday I heard the story. I was very worried about the fire. I didn't know what's going to be. And I heard some holy rabbi came and he looked at the fire and the fire went another direction. So I figured this must be that same." So I said, "Are you still alive?" What's wanted to know? And he knew this. The Baal Shem Tov said, "No, it's the Rebbe of my Rebbe." It's a ma'aser of Chassidim d'Tzion. So I'm going to connect it to a little bit of a story within a story, a little bit of a personal story. This time was 7-8 years ago. It has to be 7 years ago. It was Esem Shana after the Stalkus of the Rebbe, Gimel Tammuz. And I felt that in Esem Shana I wanted to do something. Things didn't really come together in town. There was nothing big happening. So I sent an email to all the members of my show, and I wrote to them that I'm going to be davening. I wrote to them what a Hilula is, what a Yatzid Tzaddik is, and I said I'm going to be at the oil. And if you want me to mention you personally, so send me Shmai v'Shemima and whatever your bakasha is, and I will include you. And so emails started coming in. I was just printing out all these emails, and I figured I'll sit and write over a PDF, which I'll write everything. But like I was, it was like emails and emails and emails, and people were writing. I had a whole big manila envelope. I was by the oil, on Leil Gimel Tammuz. I was sitting and learning. I remember then we got the news that those boys were found. Those 3 boys were found. That was that night. I wrote up right away. And before the days of social media, I wrote up right away an email to my community, whatever. I slept for a few hours, and you wake up, mikveh, you learn this, that. I got left somewhere to speak. By the time I got to the oil, the next day was like 1 o'clock already. It's a summer day, it's a long day. And I have a lot of writing to do. I have things to learn, I have the Mishnayos to learn, different things to learn. And then, so I start writing, and it takes a long time, the names and each bakasha. I didn't realize how long it was going to take me. 3 o'clock, the phone rings. It's a member from my shoulder, woman from my shoulder. Her mother just died in Switzerland. And she doesn't know the Chevra Kadisha. Could I arrange a burial? Okay, so that took an hour and a half. And I was on the phone with 2 shluchim, 2 of my colleagues, one of my colleagues in Switzerland. They found somebody else and Chevra Kadisha. Anyway, I arranged the levaya. Now it's 4:30. Go back to writing. There's also stuff to learn. Anyway, this and that. It was getting crazy. I was mamash beside myself already because I want to go to Gimel Tammuz. I want to be there. time I finish writing, it's like late in the afternoon. I have to have the mincha, and there's things to learn before mincha and things to learn after mincha. And then I actually get in line, and I'm like, I have to get to the oil. Esim Shana, I have like papers like this, and the line is a very long lineup. And by the time I got in there, it's mambish, like in Dumdumicham. It's already like it's like shkia. It's mambish shkia, right? And I'm beside myself, like I can't believe this. Like, I'm preparing myself, and this never come back to this. So I told him I was feeling tzibrochen about this whole thing. He said to me, I want to tell you something. So I want to tell you something. He said, when I was coming once from Australia, I sent out an email to my people for me to mention you. And it was there by the Kinnis Shluchim, he said. And whatever I said, different people sent names. He said, I didn't even know whose name was there. There was somebody in South Africa who has an aunt who lives in my community, and he was waiting for an organ transplant. And he was mamash, it was getting like worse and worse and worse, waiting for his organ transplant. Anyway, his aunt had forwarded his email to South Africa, so he put his name in. It was Friday morning in New York, and this guy got a call. It's Friday night or Shabbos morning, an emergency. He has to come to the hospital immediately. And so when he came back to Australia, this lady said, Rabbi, thank you for praying for my nephew, because you should know, like, it was a miracle. Like, mamish, that all of a sudden the organ became available, and it was mamish getting close to the end. And it turned out it was puncta time when he was by the oil. It turned out it was like puncta time. Anyway, he tells me that story. Get to see it. So going back to the story. So he called outside the Rebbe's office. There was a phone, a temporary phone that was set up then. After the stroke, it was like a mini hospital, and there was the maskirim would sometimes answer calls there. There would be maskir names to the Rebbe. He would shake his head sometimes. But there was a phone. Anyway, he got the phone. His brother, his older brother, was involved in the sichos, writing up the sichos. Not his older brother Nachman. So Nachman gave Nachum this number, this phone number. This is before the cell phone days. It's 1993. There was a member of Hatzalah, whose name is Ephraim Balter Chassidus. His nickname is Yingi Bistritsky. At that time, he was in the Rebbe's room. I think he had like a 12-hour shift. His whole parnasa collapsed, and he devoted his life then to the Rebbe. You know, after Gimel Tamas, he became a tremendous usher. He lost all his money. It was how much living hand to mouth. After Gimel Tamas, it was made brachas. Anyway, so this Ephraim Balter Chassidus told Nachum Shapiro that he never picked up the phone. He never ever picked up the phone once. This is the only time he ever picked up that phone. He was like a nurse. He was in the room. He was the nurse. IV to change and many things. And Nachum is in Sydney. It's like it's better Shabbos. He's freaking out. Like he doesn't know what to do. He has to make what should I should he leave? Take the secretariat? What do you do? You know. He's calling and he's calling and he's calling and nobody's answering. It's the middle of the night. Nobody's answering. He's calling and he's calling. So finally, this Ephraim Balter Chassidus decides he doesn't know. Somebody's calling and calling and calling. He doesn't answer the phone. So Nachum, he says, yeah, Yingi. Nachum Shapiro says, look, I have this matzav. Could you please ask the Rebbe, should we leave? Shouldn't we leave? Ask her. So Ephraim Balter Chassidus said to Nachum, I don't do this. Like, I'm a nurse. I don't ask the Rebbe things. Like, and Nachum said, I don't understand. It's mamash. It's a terrible matzav. Like, the whole house, everything to be burned. I have force infiltrate. I don't know what to do here. But it's like. So Balter Chassidus said, look, I don't know, I'm very uncomfortable. But he wrote down quickly a few details, and he said the Rebbe was sitting. I guess in a wheelchair, there's like a little table or whatever, the Rebbe was sitting there. And he read the Rebbe the note. And he asked the Rebbe, should he leave? The Rebbe shook his head, no. Shook his head, no. So he said, should he stay? Shook his head, yeah. And he read the next thing, that they're saying that the fire is heading that direction. And he says, as the Rebbe shook his head, the Rebbe starts with one of the hands, there was no mobility. The hand that was mobility, the Rebbe started to move like this a few times, his hands, like this. pushing, the Rebbe's pushing. And he asked the Rebbe again, and the Rebbe says, should he stay? Yes, and the Rebbe's pushing. Goes outside. Nachum is waiting on the phone. He said, look, I was just by the Rebbe. I asked the Rebbe, should you leave? The Rebbe said no. I asked the Rebbe, should you stay? The Rebbe said yes. And the Rebbe's moving with his hand, the Rebbe's pushing with his hand. And Nachum told me that he was on the phone, and he could see the fire, and he's seeing the fire change course. He's partially seeing I heard the story of seeing the fire change course. He's partially seeing, anyway, the fire blew in a totally different direction. Everything worked out. He's telling me the story. Okay, nice. He told me the story from Africa, so okay, whatever. Fabrengen, nice. One of the people who asked me, I should mention his name at the oil, got very, very bad news. Very, very bad news from his doctor. Mount called me crying, please don't forget to mention me. Very bad news. This guy with issues. It's like he had organ transplant, he had a kidney transplant. Yeah, it was. And I didn't even, I don't know if I mentioned his name. Like, literally pushed me out of the oil. I don't forget to mention his name. So I landed in Toronto the next day. And I turned my phone on. I remember I was walking out of the plane, I turned my phone on. And mamish, within 3 minutes I turned my phone on. I see this guy calling. And I'm almost feeling guilty to answer the phone because he asked me, did you mention my name yesterday? and I answer the phone. He says to me, Rabbi, thank you for praying for me yesterday. I didn't want to tell him that I wrote his name, I put the paper, I guess He said, I'm just leaving the doctor now. And they said it seems to be a mistake in the diagnosis. And it was like really bad. It was really ominous. Huh?
The doctor.
Okay, listen, I don't know what it is, but this I could tell you. It's 7 years later, and the guy's Baruch Hashem, he's terrified of COVID, for good reason. He's not a healthy person, but he's healthy, Baruch Hashem, he's fine, he's functioning. And, I land and turn the phone, it was the first call I get back in Toronto. Anyway, so I'm just sharing, Sipur Tzadikim is always meaningful, especially on Matzei Shabbos Kodesh. Hi. Yeah.
Wait already.
We'll sing what you guys want to sing. Sorry, just me. You
The same Rashi in this week's parsha. Vavram hoya yir l'gei gadol. So weiter, Pshuta shel Mikra. It's not negate to the story. Just like Noach ish tzaddik is not negate to the story that we have to know that there was a Yid, there was a person named Noach, and that Noach had children, and that Noach had a job to do. It's not negate Noach ish tzaddik. It's not negate that Avram hoya yir. It's not negate. So Rashi has a problem, right? He has to deal with this. Why does this Avram Hayir? So Bechlal, there's a bigger question. I mean, the Torah mentions Yitzchak, Yankiv. There's no Zecher Tzadik Avrocha. No, only Noach, only Avram. Why only Noach and Avram? So the Maral talks about this. The Maral actually has very interesting. He speaks about it in two different ways. In Parshas Noach he gives one answer, and Parshas Vayera he gives another answer. Parshas Vayera is much more like the answer is Leitz Chasach Mer, that he says that the Torah, when the Torah mentions a tzaddik, talks about a tzaddik that's not part of the narrative. Kilu Shalei B'Fanav, so Shalei B'Fanav, you say Shvachei. Miksa Shvachei B'Fanav, Shalei B'Fanav. So really the Torah is always talking B'Fanav. Torah is talking to Avram, Torah is talking to Yitzchak, Torah is talking to Yaakov, Torah is talking to Yosef. Here the Torah is not talking to Avram, right? Like the Ramban says, the whole Torah is like Shlishing Amadaber, but here there's a commentary. It's like, Avram, it's not the, maybe it's not talking to Avram. It's not Vayim Hashem Avram. It's not the Yem Shel Avram, so that's the Maral's Mahalach. That's can't we say that explains why it does not have the Zecher Tzadik Avrocha, but okay, so these are the two examples where it's Shalei B'Fanav, where the Shlishi Medaber is not telling you that the Eibush there spoke to a particular tzaddik, but the Rebbeinu Shalom is Keilu in his Torah telling you not B'Fanav, not in a dynamic way. But in Parshas Vayera, Rashi says, Medrash Agoda, that Hoyel v'Hizkirei Chayiv Levarchei. It's the same pasuk. It's the same Zecher Tzadik Levracha. Rashi quotes the same pasuk twice. The first time he says Shenemer. It's Leitzach. It's a pasuk. It's Shenemer. He says Medrash Agoda Zecher Tzadik. It's a Medrash Agoda. It's a Medrash Agoda. It's a pasuk. It's a pasuk Mefereshes. That 2 weeks ago, Rashi said Shenemar. And this week he leaves off Shenemar. The Rashi starts off. Avram Hayyi is right away. Medrash Agoda. It's a Peladiga thing. Nobody speaks about it. It's a Peladiga thing. In Parshas Noach, Sipa B'Shvachei. Oh, here's Chayiv Levarchei. Sipa B'Shvachei, Chayiv Levarchei. What's the pshat in the pasuk? Zecher Tzadik Levracha is a Sipur B'Shvach, it's a Chayiv Levarcha. In other words, like, almost like there's a chiyuv over here. Rashi's brings a chiyuv. The Torah has a chiyuv. Hayesa, the Torah demand that Tzadik, and Mela is no chiyuv. Balter is no chiyuv, and Mela. So which is the chiyuv? The chiyuv is Sipur B'Shvach, or the chiyuv is Chayiv Levarcha? So the Rebbe once spoke about this. He said a Peladic thing. The Rebbe said that there's a major difference between what the Eibishter says about Noach and what the Eibishter says about Avram. By Noach he says Noach ish tzaddik. As they say, is a uvda. Noach ish tzaddik. Fact. But Avram is not speaking what Avram is now. Avram ish tzaddik. What does it say? Hoye yes, that's a the Mosid. It's a ved zayin. There will be a great nation. Hoye. So you can't say Sipa B'Shvachei. Hoye is not Sipa B'Shvachei. In other words, in Noach it's B'Pashtus. The Pshute Shal Mikra of the Pasuk is Zecher Tzadik is Levracha. Shem Rishoyim is Yirkov. Not that there's a Pa'ula we have to do. Arasha vet verfoiled. Who cares about Arasha? Shem Rishoyim is the Metzias. Shleim HaMelech says this is the Metzias. Zecher Tzadik, the Zecher from the Tzadik is Levracha. Mashenka, Shem Rishoyim, das ist Shenemer, it's a Pasuk. Das steht a Pasuk. Avram, it doesn't say Sipa B'Shvachei. Das ist a Maisa, Hoye Yir, the Eibishter get a Bracha. Hoye Yir. The Ksava Kabbalah stellt sich on what Hoye Yir is. Hoye was a Yir, it's Hoye Yir. He says it's a Vados. It's not only a Bracha, it's a Havtocha. He says the emphasis, the double emphasis, as we would say in English, he will surely be. Es wird sicher sein, Hoye Yir. It's nicht stam a Bracha, das ist a Bracha v'Havtocha. Here Rashi can't say Shenemar. Well, this nicht das versteht in Pasuk. The Pasuk doesn't say that you have to give a bracha or havtacha for a tzaddik. The Pasuk says Shem Metzias. Zecher tzaddik lebracha. Shem l'shoyev verfoiled to the yirkel. The Torah is doing something different over here. The Torah mentions Avram, like the Maral says, taka different. It's not befonov, but the Eber's giving a bracha. Stellt zu l'shayla, was ist das? What is this bracha? So the Rebbe says, Rashi can't say shenemer, because it's not pshat in the pasuk anymore. This is already a medrash haggadah. A medrash haggadah is, as b'shas, as b'dermont, a tzaddik, the medrash haggadah of zeichet tzaddik, not the shenemer, not the simple pshat in the pasuk. The medrash haggadah is the chayiv levorchei. It's taken out of din. It's a medrash haggadah, chayiv levorchei. The also the chayiv levorchei, the hoye yir. Once had a conversation with let's call him a faith leader from a different system. In my journeys, I cross paths with a lot of strange people. Whatever, you deal with all kinds of people. See? So he said to me, "What do you guys do with Melchizedek? Is he part of your prayer? Is he part of liturgy? Melchizedek? Melchizedek. This is like embarrassing. He's saying something biblical. I don't know what he's talking about. It's not going to look good. But like, could you say that again? This is Melchizedek. He's one of our patriarchs. He's a patriarch. Melchizedek. I said, from my Bible? Like I'm supposed to know this? He says, no. I said, oh, Melchizedek. Yeah, right. Yeah, I said, no, he means mentioned the Torah, whatever. It's a kohen. Abraham gives him Meiser, but no, he's not a patriarch, right? He's a big man, but else he says, we do a whole thing in Melchizedek. How come he's not a patriarch with you? How come he's not a... So a lot of times, the Rebbe spoke about Noach. He said, Noach, the Eibishter gave him a platform. Why it took him 120 years to build it? It was a barge. It wasn't just like, it's a fancy battleship. It was a big floating barge, a big box. Why? Because it didn't have to go anywhere. They make the picture of a boat. It's a nice boat. It was a boat. It was that kestel. That's what it was, a kestel. What was the point of that kestel? It should float. Where were they going? Nowhere. Just staying alive. So there's a big floating raft. 3 layers. That's what it is. What do you think, 120 years? 120 years. So the Rogatchover Goen says, if you look at the Lashon HaPasuk, all of the Lashonis are personal. It was a chiyuv on Noach. He had to do everything. And Taka, the Medrash says that he planted the trees. He manufactured the lumber. He cut it. He had to do everything himself. His kids, they couldn't help. Nobody could help him. The chiyuv was a chiyuv on Noach. The Eibishter gave him a personal mitzvah. So give him 120 years. Why did the Eibishter give him? What does that say? As they mutchen at tzaddik, 120 years, he has to plant the trees himself. Elamai, pshat is a poshet. Noach had gedaf machen balei tshuva, but he couldn't find his voice. So the Eibishter gave him a soapbox. He gave him a stage. He brought the people to him. They zon and fragen Noach, if you're going into the lumber business, you had midlife crisis. What is the issue? Why are you planting? This is the Eibishter of the Welt, and the Eibishter told me it's going to be a flood. Oh, right. Midlife crisis. No? He had 6 midlife crises, like right there. He became a lumberjack, and then he became a... Kenein bal tshuva nicht gemacht. Ich kenein bal tshuva. Appelle also. Just he held on to the outside. Yirei bal tshuva is nicht gewähnt. Like, what happened over here? It's a crazy thing. Steht ach Noach. I think the Balei Teis would say ach Noach is the gematria of Eik. Ach Noach. As the Medrash says, Sichon was born in the table. Chalekes over there, Noach had a second wife. Could be Nama died before. Because it took a Zivug Sheni, and from this came Sichon. Anyway, this is Midrashim. But the Metziah says Noach didn't make any Baal Tshuva. Noach is nicht bei uns whatever. Ish Tzadik. Right? Yesh Darshan L'Gnai. Was darf man Darshan L'Gnai? Was darf man Darshan L'Gnai? Wer hat die gebeten Darshan L'Gnai? I mean, if you could darshan l'teva, why if you darshan l'gnai? Pshat's poshet there, because we have to know that Noach is not the man to replicate. This is not via Yidav Zayin. This is verschlossen in seine eigene Welt. Also wie diese Expression, a Tzadik im Pelz. A Tzadik im Pelz, emes warm. Das ist emes warm. Man darf anwarmen, nach zweiten. Man darf tanfen nach zweiten. Nein, ist gewinn a warme Tzadik. I told him, I said, who did Melchizedek teach? Who did he inspire? Who did he bring around? He says, I don't know. I said, nobody knows. He was a king in Salem, and that's it. He was a king. Took Meiser, Shkoyach. He blessed Avraham. I said, who did Abraham inspire? He said, oh, we know Abraham. I said, so you answered the question. That's why Melchizedek is not spoken about by us. And Avraham, you know, by us is Mogen Avraham. B'chach Eisman. Huh?
What about Yitzhak?
Avraham Yitzchak and Yankov.
Yes, but who did Yitzhak?
Yitzchak inspired.
He did, eventually.
First of all, he worked very, very hard on trying to bring Esav around. And he kept digging and digging and digging, right?
Yeah.
And who did he raise? Yankov fell off a tree. There's a lot to talk about Yitzchak. This is like a whole... Incredible Avos al Shleish is not a little thing. It's a... So the Nekuda is like this. By Noach, good. Noach is tzaddik. As they say in Hebrew, Masha haya. Gewesen a tzaddik. Seder. Bei Avraham Avinu is hoye yiyeh. Es nicht was ist, so was wird sein. Avraham lives on the Netzach. Avraham Avinu lebt heint. Durch jeden Ried lebt Avraham hoye yiyeh. It's not a siper sibishvache. Those are chayav levarche. V'yashleimer that like it's brought in Sefer Chassidus that levarche is lashon bracha v'hamshacha, to be mamshech, to bring it down. The whole yin of Avram, that's als up to bring it, and this is what we call an eternal reality. There's a word by Chassidim that a chassid darf machen as svir. Eba chassid has to create an environment around it. Und eben nicht darf es ihm zu brechen wie a Spendel. He has to be broken like a splinter. Weil if you're the way you're supposed to be, if a Yid is wie a Yid darf sein, was heißt das in Zwiebel? Was heißt das? Not influencing somebody. Kann ich sein, als Metzius. Eba Yid lernt Teire, Eba Yid tut Mitzvahs, Eba Yid lebt mit etwas, Eba lebt, darf beleben. Okay, Loshem Tefech Hamanas Latfiach. It's Allah in the Shabbos, right? What's something? But you should be so saturated with a sense of passion and fervor and dedication and devotion and inspiration that's Hamanas Latfiach. Somebody else gets wet also. And this is the shlichus that the Eibishter gave every one of us. You think you're in a particular place, in a particular vocation, in a particular setting by accident? There's no accident. Everywhere a person goes, there's a kavan el yena. There's a nitzutz. There's something waiting for us. So you have to be mindful of that. There's something a person has to be thinking of constantly. A person has to remind himself constantly. There was a certain Yid. He's about our age. I know him for 18 years now. So I'm a little aggressive. I used to ask him to put on film, and he got like really nervous at me once. They screamed at me, "Don't ask me again." For me to stop asking you have to really scream like hard. Like it's like this was pretty bad. So I backed off. Whatever. I try to keep a shtickle kesher. Once in a blue moon they would show up. Maybe it's not a bar mitzvah last week and a half ago. With the MS I was nervous. I don't know what to. He's going to put on film for sure. And then, like, the Eibishter helps. The kid has a little bit of a funny shape, so they tailored her shirt, and the shirt doesn't go up. Come 15 minutes for davening, shirt doesn't go up. Right? It's like, you would never notice, but there's a little button over there that most people don't know about. I'm very much aware of this button, because the second button, if you don't open it, you can't roll your, you do know, you put on film. But you put it on other people, nobody else knows, they don't put on film, they don't roll the sleeves up, they don't know about that button. I'm looking for the button, it's not there. And his mother calls for the assumption. No, it's a tailored shirt. It's a This is like, what? Mama Asa Hashem, Kocha, like, seriously, the Beit Shalom, like. And the mother screams down, "Rip the shirt!" Okay, good. Rip the shirt. Anyway, lapel somehow I managed, I pushed, managed. I figured the father, who's not very favorably disposed to this whole thing, he's gonna have a cow. He's like, he's gonna take my head off, you know. I was thinking, should I ask him? Shouldn't I ask him? I said, just listen. As soon as bar mitzvah, as soon as it's playing film, like, I said, Jason, you're gonna. He says, yeah. I said, okay, good. And he takes out his film. You brought film. I take a look at this film. I wanted to ask him if he still wears his bar mitzvah suit. And well, people get very offended that they have a pair of film, which is their heirloom film. They don't have their cell phones from the bar mitzvah, but it's film that it has, it's a sentimental rabbi, sentimental. And I was thinking, what should I do over here? He's going to get even more offended now. Here, finally going to put on film, and I told him that. I said, if it's Schlägen concussion at film, what's going to be? What's going to help? I said, Jason, I said, I love you very much, but I really want you to connect to Hashem. Like, I don't know if it's film or kosher. He said, what do you mean? Why would film not be kosher? When I have to eat it. I said, nothing lasts forever, right? Parchment doesn't last forever either. I said, when did you check the film? He said, you have to check the film. I said, yeah. I said, we'll scroll inside. You have to open it up and check it. He says, really? Yeah. I said, yeah, the letters could fade. I said, I check my film. I check on a regular basis. I check my film all the time. He says, really? Yeah. So I said, here's a kosher pair of film. Nice, and the hood is big. Could we just... I said, please just... I said, I'll get your film check for you. Like, just... And I was waiting for like explosion, because that's the kind of guy, he's an explosion guy. He said to me, okay. Anyway, put on film. His father refused to put on film. That was already too much. His father said, no! Okay, well, refused. The Zaydi wouldn't put on film. But okay, put on film. He came to me after and he said to me, so who could check my film? Could you give me a name of somebody? I said, yeah, give me a name. He said, send me an email. I think I sent him. I don't want to harass, in a few weeks I'll call him. Well, maybe I'll call the Sefer first, find out if he went there first. But it's just like, it reminded me that sometimes, I think the Friedrich Rebbe once said, as me beta Yidden, as a legend film, wird sagen, dank. Nicht heint, is morgen. Nicht morgen, sieben morgen, not today, is tomorrow, not tomorrow. Nicht auf der Welt, auf jener Welt. Like, you don't know. And the Rebbe once said, every Yid can only say no so many times. How many times can I say no? So you have to ask, keep asking. At some point, you're going to wear him down. Like, you're going to wear him down. Amazing. There's a guy who comes every day to Mincha, say Kaddish, every day asking about film, every day no. It's a strange cat. Okay, keep asking. Can ich wissen? Like, at some point, he's going to run out of his nose, like, how many times did he say no? When I was a kid, this is like many years ago, I was 16, 17. Anyway, I used to go on a Friday afternoon, and when Seder was over, I used to go to Manhattan, put on film with people. So there was a guy named Stewart, I forgot his last name. I remember he was a Montrealer. And every week we'd ask him to put on film, and every week he would say no. It was like clockwork. But film, no, boys, no, thank you, no, okay, no. And it really used to bug us, So one week I told my studying class, I'm not asking him this week. I said, I'm not asking him, I don't care. So we walk in the office, put it told the other guy, we're walking out, and he calls out, how come you didn't ask me to put on the film? I remember it was a Friday, Yud Shvat. So I said, because you're not going to put on anyway! I screamed back. He says, how do you know? I'm like, statistics? He says, you never know if you try. All right, Mendel said, Stuart, did you like to put on film? Sure. Could you explain such a thing?
Just to spite you.
No, a yid doesn't make sense. There's nothing that makes sense about a yid. A yid is a strange creature. It's a nefesh elikis stuffed into a nefesh habahamis. He doesn't really, it's a mudna. He doesn't understand himself. Why, yeah, but what's it in? You have to keep reaching out. Ken ich wissen. You saw on on Vin News, and the story, you saw it? These two guys, they go over this Unilight, they're about 40, mid-40s. They take a mitzvah tank to Manhattan every day. So there was an Alta Galach walking by. I don't even know, the crazy guys asked if he's Jewish. It was like a joke. The guy is, yes. So he says, what, yes, he says, no, I'm Jewish. He says, your mother is Jewish, your father? He says, my father and my mother. Father or your mother? He says, yeah, my parents were killed in Auschwitz. They put me in a convent. And I was raised in a monastery. Both my parents are Jewish. Never had a bar mitzvah. He was a child. First a child, he's 80 years old now. The child grew up in a monastery. He said to them, you should know that when I was, after the war, I was comfortable here. You know, I didn't know my parents were dead. I didn't know everything, all the Jews were gone. So I was here. And he said, I used to get, abused. My friends, they knew I was Jewish. There was, anti-Semitism in the church, in the monastery. So he said, I went to the senior pastor, whatever, senior galach, and I said to him, they're making fun of me. They're harassing me. The pastor said, listen, I'm Jewish also. He said to him, once you become a successful pastor, they'll stop to leave you alone. So he said, it was true. I became a successful pastor. I spent 50 years in Pakistan preaching the thing. Now they retired me. I'm in New York. He walked by, this guy asked if he's Jewish. He said, you want to put on film? Nah, I never put on film. I said, listen, it's a lot of little thing. The Gemara says you can put on film once you're finished. Anyway, he came into this thing, he put on film. He said to them, they will never let me into a synagogue, will they? With the Shemina Begadim, they took off his thing, put it in the white robes. They took off his Salem. Yeah, took off his Salem.
So what kind of Catholic? It was from Midian?
Do I know? Now I have to be an expert in Catholicism also. You know, Akiva, I don't even know how this happened. The Abishter works things out, right? So this goes back almost 18, 19 years. I got a call. There was a Catholic school that was supposed to go visit a Reformed synagogue. The Reformed temple canceled, and it was a thing, and they had to go. So, I don't know, they opened up the phone book. There's a phone book.
The Reformed synagogue was Chabad.
No, I can't. We used to be Chabad at. So it was I don't know, they called it up. It says, would the rabbi speak to a group of Catholic children? So my secretary came and said, it's got a very funny call. The answer's probably no, but would you speak to a group of Catholic children? I said, if Hashgacha Pratis, they call Sheva Mitzvah. What? I said, yeah, let's see what happens. Fine. So this group of kids come in. And gosh, I did a whole dog and pony show, and I told them Sheva Mitzvah Minech. I have the whole technique now. I worked it out, and I said, well, the kids had such a good time that they told somebody else. All the schools in the Catholic New York region come to my show. I used to go to 10 schools, 12 meetings a year, every few weeks. And more than once, by the way, I found a Yid in the crowd. One time, I'll tell you two amazing stories that happened from these things. One time, a boy came over to me as everybody was walking out, and he whispered to me, I'm Jewish, but my parents are forcing me to go here because they think it's a better education. So I quickly pulled him in the side, I put on film with him, said Shema Yisrael, and I gave him my number. I said, if I could ever help you, you should call me. Whatever. I didn't hear from him, but at least he put on film, whatever. Another time, my wife calls me, she says, there's some crazy guy in the hallway. There's a crazy guy in the hallway. So I run outside, there's some guy walking into walls, like ganz immer Schule. Dreht sich ahead, dreht sich. I said, excuse me, sir, can I help you? He says, I'm the bus driver. I said, what bus driver? He said, the Catholic kids. Oh, right, the Catholic kids are coming today. He said, I'm the bus driver. I said, okay. Look, there's a nursery school here. It's not really appropriate. He said, no, I'm confused. Okay. Sorry you're confused. If you can come with the students if you want. He says, okay, I'm coming soon. I'm distraught. Okay. I'm with the guy. I go upstairs, I do my whole thing, and I see the guy in the back. He came in the back. He was sitting and listening to the whole thing. The kids are going out, and the guy comes over to me and he says, can I speak to you? I said, sure. No, he says, not here. We do something private? I said, okay. This was a little weird. I went to my office. He says, can we close the door? Very strange. I said, close the door. And the guy is quiet. It felt like a long time, a minute. He's like staring at the floor. He's like, I'm Jewish! I'm like, "Oh, okay, so am I. Like, what? And he tells me a crazy story. He says to me, I did not know that I was Jewish. My mother was from Paris. My grandfather was a rabbi. My mother's maiden name was Berkowitz. I never knew this, he says. I was cleaning up the attic. I was taking my mother to an old age home. My mother's married. We grew up a Christian family. And I went in the attic. I was going through. I found pictures. Funny looking people with beards. A guy with a black hat and a beard. Very strange. So I brought this picture down to my mother. I said, what is this? And she started crying. Where did you find this? She says, in the attic. And his mother broke down. And she said, listen, I never told this to you. I was a girl. My family was deported to Auschwitz. I was sent to a Christian family to live. And I stayed with the family after. And I just married, and I never told you guys, but I'm Jewish. And he said I was like very disturbed. You know, I didn't really like Jews. I didn't know if I found them Jewish all of a sudden. And he said a few times I wanted to go to a synagogue, and every time I tried to go near a synagogue, I got too afraid. I ran away. I went a few times. One time I walked up, I took the handle. I was about to open it, I ran away. He said, this is going on for a few years now. And he said, my mother died, he said, already. It's like, but I know I'm Jewish. I'm like, and he said, today's the first time in a synagogue. That's where I was so distraught. I was so, there was a storm going on inside me. I was so distraught. And I said, I don't know what to do with this. I don't know what to do with this. My mother's Jewish, and I researched it, so I found that I'm Jewish. So first thing I explained to him a few things, whatever it was that. I said, I don't think bris milah was the smartest way to start a conversation. even by you. I wasn't sure it was the smartest way to start. But I said, if you know, film, you can sure put on. There's a dion about this, but you can put on film without auto leaving. It's not like worthless. I was once somewhere, and I was putting on film with somebody. Somebody started screaming at me. So somebody else said to him, what should I, Stefan? You don't know the story? You don't know the story? So what story? He says the story that Schneer told. The guy says he heard the story from Schneer. Schneer says, Tatet me gerufen one morning, and he says, I want to tell you about my chalom from last night. He was running away, the Bachram running away with World War I. And they're trying to go over the Gvul, They're trying to run out of Poland. And they had a guy that paid, took them up across the river. And he remembered that he left his phone in the farmhouse where they were staying. The Shiva said, I'm not going to get up my phone, going back to my phone. said, so he went back to the farmhouse. It was a safe house. They would drop him off, and he couldn't go anymore. He spent the night or whatever, hiding in a farmhouse. So in the morning, he figured the Abish that put him here. It's not Stam he left his phone. He asked the farmer if he's Jewish, and the farmer said he's Jewish. So he asked him, "Did you ever put on film before?" So he said, "Never put on film before." So the Rashid put on film with him.
Is it your Byron?
Yeah. Put on film with him. And then somehow he got across the Gvul. He escaped. So Schneer said, my father told me that he had a cholm. His father had a cholm last night. That he saw this farmer. This farmer came to him and said to him, I died last night. And thanks to you putting on film with me, let me get out of it. So I just came to tell you thank you. Not pashut. As they say, shum davar lo pashut. That's the emes. Kein zach is pashut. Like upon him, huh?
You can verify that.
I heard it. I'll tell you where I was. I was in Yerushalayim. I heard I don't know who the man is. I never saw him before. I never saw him after. I was there for. He told me, "Ich hab das gehört von Schneer." Wow. I said, "You?" I said, "I heard it from Schneer."
Where's Tzvi?
So how are you going to verify it? We got connections like that. I also
He's out to Lake with it.
You know that I used to sit at Schneer's lap?
Oh.
Schneer used to verheer me. The Davidson and my Zayda were second cousins. And she lost her whole family. Schneer Davidson. My elder Zayda was a gross part. His wife was an angel from Sudas. She was a cousin. So when we moved to Lakewood,
Her name was Friedman, right?
her name is Friedman. Chaim.
Here. You know how many shidduchim happened from those trips? Do you have any idea how many?
No.
Where's
I know-
Yoni?
I know
Yoni
what you
left?
Any left?
Yoni, 2 boys. Dudi's son. He wasn't here. Mechi's.
That son that was there, right?
That son.
You just
That
had a
son.
baby.
You just had a baby.
You just had a baby. He's going in for the first. It's like a Wednesday.
Next time I have to bring a few girls with us.
Now you're pushing
Yeah, I
it.
I have daughters.
That's a separate trip. It's a different.
Do they have trips for ladies? Sure.
Yeah, my wife's taking a group of ladies next week. They don't do Shabbos, do they? It's a day trip. No, they go in.
Fabrengen?
I was there last week, Mother Shabbos. There was this big school bus with all ladies.
You know, there's a younger man whose name is Ephraim Balter. Nemesis, I don't know him well. He's done some very big business apparently. Shver is a very, very wealthy man, and they're looking at some business here, and they were dealing with actually a guy who knows me, and this guy said, I have a rabbi, so I have to bring you to see my rabbi. Good, so this younger man came. Whatever, we met in the office, we spoke a little bit. I said, do you ever go to the oil? He says, yeah, I actually do go sometimes. I go sometimes. He says, I want to tell you something that really, really was the nightmare when I go to the oil. I don't see this in any other kreisen, he said. He's a guy, you know, it's like, you know, the vice mandals from Nitra or whatever, he gets around, but he says, like, I go different. He says, also like, you know, guy's a Baba Chassid. The father's a Baba Chassid, the children, whatever, they're the children of a Baba Chassid. Or they'll become the, you know, the wives of a whatever chassid, or younger man they marry. And the wife is a wife. As I come to the oil, because I don't see the father sitting down and writing a letter. The mother's writing a letter. The teenagers are writing a letter. The little kids are writing a letter. Everybody's writing. He said, I don't see this anywhere else. And the emphasis that by the Rebbe, the women are chassidim, the children are chassidim. We're all pashut. The Rebbe of the Numen Yidden in a a different, next level kind of thing.
My wife was early. The pathway is very, very narrow to the oil.
It's a little hard. It's a little hard to move. It's hard to kind of expand over there, you know.
Yeah. Permanent residence.
Yeah.
Unless you do bridge I and.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a problem. Listen, the Abish has to just get rid of this whole mice, and that's it. Shir het kommen, we'll not have the problems anymore. You know, David Lichtenstein called me a few days ago. Fast. Speak somewhere with the Bible. I want to be shayitz with you. Should I do it? I never knew David Lichtenstein. But it was like the only reason I got to know was
What should we know? Why are you dropping
Headlines.
headlines.
Oh, headlines. Oh, yeah.
It's like a billionaire.
He's been on there. He's right. He was rich from before.
No. He's self-made man.
From this?
No, he's a
Developer.
developer.
Lighthouse.
Who's
So
he
it's
come out of
called
Lakewood?
Lights.
Who's he come out of Lakewood? 1976. He made his first purchase. You can Google him. You can read all about. He's a fascinating guy. Sure, well. He's like a maverick. He's a big Talmud Chacham. He's a very smart guy. He sits and learns every day. He's a big Talmud Chacham. Whatever. He's a maverick. He's who David Lichtenstein. But I'm saying, but he sincerely wanted to understand what is the how did Rebbe do it? You know, like he said, give me some Aram. You have to make a speech soon. Should I give the speech? I said, I think you should give the speech. Why not? what's going to be a successful speech, what if he, he does his research. This is my claimants, like, what did they ever say about this, ever say about that? I was thinking about it, like what? The Rebbe was a good speaker? I don't know. I don't think you could say that. Is that a good speaker? Did he orate? That was a very unusual way of speaking. It sounded like a monotone. If you could, take my word for it. Go listen to a recording now. Listen. If you lose a train of thought for 30 seconds, you have no idea what he's talking about anymore. Because you have to follow every single word, but it doesn't sound like you're saying a chiddush. Everything is like pashut. Everything is pashut. There were times that ever spoke and the Indian alums got cocked and he spoke very fast. It went Indian, and if it was something that I researched and knew really well, like I would be like, wow, this is crazy, like jumping up and down. But if you don't know all the Rishonim and with all the rates from the Achreinim, and the Rebbe says a halba vart, and the halba vart is it's a lishitase, but you don't even know the halba vart if you don't know the whole, right? Because everything was so rich and so laden, layers and layers and layers. It was there was no theatrics. There was no, there's a very interesting Ran. The Rashas, the Ran asked a kasha, like a klotz kasha. So how could it be that Moshe Rabbeinu, his whole Indian was Tedas Moshe, the whole Indian that Moshe Rabbeinu was an agency, David Obnei Yisrael, and Moshe's speech, Lama Hashem Kazes. Moshe's ganze Indian, Moshe's nicht the Goyal, is Rabbeinu. The ganze Indian is learning Teda mit Yidden. We steht to see him say from Malachi, Zichu Tedas Moshe Avdi. Der Moshe Rabbeinu, was in Yonne is learning mit Yidden Teda, kann ich reden. He's a Quadpe. Like as if Chassidus is brought down in Kabbalah it says that Moshe Rabbeinu was a different madrege, and the Shomadat Silas, Quadpe, couldn't, so to speak, transmit things into lower elements, the lower world. He was but in Pshat, what's going on over here? Nan says a Meredika thing. He says, Lu Hoya, that Moshe Rabbeinu would have been an orator. People could he bewitched his audience. He sold it to them. He was such a good speaker, so they bought into it. Mele, the Eibishter gemacht that he was a terrible speaker. And he couldn't speak. Nobody could convince themselves, as Moshe Rabbeinu says, a gute Redner, und der Vater macht Menschen. As a gute Redner. That's how he swept them off their feet. Nobody would listen to him. Sie können reden. Zah Moshe Rabbeinu, was Quad per Quad Loshen, was allem gehört und allem gefolgt. Das ist die größte Reihe, that it's Moshe Rabbeinu. Anyway, the Rebbe wasn't a Quad per, but I can't say it would speak, audience. The Rebbe lifted the audience, not from speaking. It wasn't, it's hard to listen, it's hard. Even today, it's hard. It's hard to listen. It's hard to listen. How can Kaplan and Rebbe could speak for an hour and a half, 2 hours continuously. The 10 minutes in between L'chaim and weiter. An average sikha, the Rebbe mentions hundreds of Maramikemis. Never looks in the Sefer. Hundreds of Maramikemis. Shishem, Machreinim, Safra, Sefri, Mechilta, you name it, it's continuous. Everything, it's the Strom. It's just a continuous stream. That's how the Rebbe got people to go on shlichus, because he said a chiddush. It's a chiddush. And I was asking myself, how taka? What was the? I was thinking to myself, Jonathan Sachs had a medidika koyach. His first yard said this. He had a medidika koyach to speak to the Western world. He used to say, "As a going in shtus." He knew every stupid book and every popular culture. When it outgave was, and he was able to. Ich weiß jetzt nicht, gesagt Chedushim, wer der große Landen? Ich denke Landen. I don't know, it's a big Landen. Deze Piskedinim. He told me when he had a shaila, I heard him, he told me himself, he said he used to call it B'yashav to everything. Any shaila, and he was a serious shaila, I had an open line to B'yashav, any serious shaila in England. He did gebuit of zich when he came to, which I was actually impressed with. He didn't, that wasn't his Indian. Everybody has their kav. That wasn't his Indian. It wasn't, he's not, he gave shiurim. Could you say over like Zokteda? And the Chidushim, he said, I sent him an email once. I said, he said us made a whole drush over there. There's a Hepichon from one of the Rishonim. He didn't answer me, but so Ephraim Balter says the opposite. Like he said, the whole thing that the prophets weren't kohenim. The prophets weren't kohenim. Whole thing of how it's not a kohen. I said Ephraim Balter says exactly the opposite. He says the reason that it's one of the Rishonim. It's not the Ramban, it's not the Ibn Ezra, but it's one of the Rishonim. You can't argue with the Rishon. He says, why does the Eibush put the inyan of sorcery, witchcraft, right after the inyan of kohenim? Because there'll be a kohen, and he's jealous because other kohenim, well, Leo is given a kohen, Yeshayahu is given a kohen, it's a kohen. So on felt a nishkin kohen, I mean, he's a kohen, but he's not. He doesn't have the. The Gemara in Megillah says there was thousands of neviim. Memches neviim is the neviim who gave us nevuah, which is in the. So he didn't have the nevuah. He didn't have it, right? So he'll think chas v'shalom to go to like the Eibush. Anyway, but what he was a genius in. And Mamash, what he did in an unbelievable way was he spoke to the Western world. He met them on their field, on their playing field. And he was Mekadosh Shem Shemayim. There's no question. He was Mekadosh Shem Shemayim in a way that very few people in history have Mekadosh Shem Shemayim. Very few people Mekadosh Shem Shemayim like that. I mean that's just my opinion. But the Kiddush Hashem that he made was extraordinary. He was here in Toronto once years ago, and it was a small group of Rabbanim that he was talking to us. He said that he was on a plane. I don't know. There was some kind of official tekes, whatever, like somewhere, and he was as a chief rabbi of Great Britain. So he was official. He was the representative of the Jewish community. And the Archbishop of Canterbury was there, and Prince Charles was there, and like the Suda with Avimelech. The Suda with Avraham Avinu from last week. The Suda Zabris. Gedei le'ador. I like Gedei le'ador from it. The whole dance, So he says he's sitting on the plane. On the way back, he ends up sitting next to Prince Charles. He always says he always travels to the Chumash. Interesting thing. It was his. He always travels to the Chumash.
Sachs?
Yeah. No, he told us. I was sitting with a group of 5, 6, 7. He told us he always travels to the Chumash. He traveled to this thing. It was a time. He said also he felt like he was in these circles. He wanted to hold on to a Chumash, and I was he had certain edelkeit. So he says he opens the Chumash, and Prince Charles says, "What are you doing?" He says, "Studying Torah." He says, "What is Torah?" It's a Bible. It's a Bible. So I'm looking. I see like a lot of different prints over there. His Bible is a Bible. This is a Bible with the bold print, this print, that print. What's going on in the pages? It's a very busy page over there. So he said, "So this is the scripture. This is Rashi." The French sage, medieval sage, who gives the simple commentary. And this is Rashbam. This is Rashi's grandson. And this is Ibn Ezra. He was a Spanish commentator. And this is a Kliyokar. And this is, he explained that Arachayim because it's very interesting. Did you tell me what they say? He said he's sitting in the plane, and Prince Charles is there, and some other royal leans over, and he says, and whatever, he's learning Chumash. By the way, the Rambam said you're allowed to learn. You're allowed to learn Torah with a Christian because they believe in the Bible, but they have a little confusion at the end. He says Muslims are not allowed to learn with because they don't believe in the Chumash. They pass the Rambam. There's machlekes to shame about it. It's not pasha. Anyway, he's talking to him. For sure, in Yadam of Emunah, we have a chiyuv to teach them. It's not a. He said there's a pasuk in Tillim in Kufya Tes that says V'adabra neged melachim v'lei evish. And he said he's sitting there on this plane. Prince Charles, the Crown Prince of Great Britain, is there. Another, the royal family. And he's I'm learning Torah. I'm learning Torah. I'll tell you what, the pasuk. It was Mekadosh Shem Shemayim. It's not simple, We know what a Chil Hashem is and how bad that is. What a big a Kiddush Hashem is. It's not like the Yesh Darshan L'Gnai has to have a reason to Darshan L'Gnai.
Who took over?
Jonathan Sachs. The truth is that his godless, if you will, was because of who he was, not his position. He wasn't influential because of his position. He was influential because he was influential. He graced the position, not the other way around. It's Ken Zayin as Givarin because he got the position that put him, but Lapel, he was bigger than his position. It didn't matter that his position was over. whatever I don't know who he is, I don't know what but I don't think he's Mekai. He had a unique, there's no question that a unique way of speaking and unique way of conveying. And by the way, he openly said that he Klal never thought about it. The whole reason he went into the rabbinate was because of the Rebbe. There's a famous story with the Rebbe. He had a Yechidus, and then after the Rebbe called him back, he said that whole thing happened only because of the Rebbe inspired him, right? So it's like another thing, another domino. The Rebbe took this Yid and totally turned him around, and how many people did he affect? So anyway, so Jonathan Sachs says it's an interesting way of putting this. He says, who's the most influential man of the world? Who's the most influential man? He says, you Google the 100 most influential people. His name is not there. He says Avraham Avinu. The Muslims do not claim to be the people of Moshe. They claim to be people of Avraham. It's 2.6 billion of these chayas. It's a lot of people, They're human beings. B'tzelem Elokim. You can't do anything about it. Human beings are human beings. 1.7 billion Christians. They also claim Abraham's monotheism. Frag dir a Pashta Scheile. Was hat geschrieben, Avraham Avinu? Kannst du mir sagen, ob es Teire von Avraham Avinu? Don't know, was Teire von Avraham. Was hat gesagt?
You tell him.
Huh?
Tell him, I think.
It doesn't say.
Sefer Yetzirah.
Sefer Yetzirah, there's a machlekes about this. There's a machlekes. Why did the Sefer Yetzirah? Because at the end of the Sefer Yetzirah, it's brought down about the Bris Milah with 10. It's brought down, so they say it's not pashut, elsewhere it says that Rabbi Akiva wrote it. It's al derech eisius to Rabbi Akiva. Mistama that it's both true. Mistama that there is in Yonim from Avraham Avinu there, and Mistama Rabbi Akiva actually wrote Sefer Yetzirah the way we have it today. I mean, the Gemara talks about the Sefer Yetzirah when they created the Gerlams. The Sefer Yetzirah could still work if you're Anshe Amayla. They say the Gra made it when he was a Bar Mitzvah boy. He made a Gerlam. That's what they say. So, Avraham Avinu had genomen de Welt met Sefer Yetzirah. You ever learned Sefer Yetzirah? Can any of these people repeat something from Sefer Yetzirah? It's Avraham Avinu gesagt, das Sefer Yetzirah ein Gas, die gewinnt zu singen und zu sagen. You know what, Abraham? Count me in. I believe in your God now because your Sefer Yetzirah was such a like, as they say in Hebrew, dugri, let's talk to you real, what? He for sure, Avraham Avinu for sure engaged in conversation. It's the Vayita Eshel. What's the Eshel? He pressured the people. They don't want to learn and pay the bills. By the way, the Rebbe once asked, what's some Mudnemaisa? The guy doesn't want to learn. Avraham Avinu forces the guy to learn. What is that? What coercion is that? What's the pshat? So the Rebbe said that it's brought down, Rabbi Yena says, and other Rishonim say, that sometimes b'tzad a gaiva, of a person's gaiva, that a person's unable to humble himself, doesn't want to, Vilnish head, can't bring himself to listen. But Avraham Avinu gave the guy a bill like this, that it's a brachans and chitzenius. He brought down his external opposition. And once the guy was ready to listen, Avraham Avinu get So it's zichi get. What did Avraham Avinu talk about? It's agit in the meibishten zendliche Yavnazeh. You make tuizende balachuva, so to speak. Goyish balachuva. What did he tell them? Could you give me an argument? What was Abraham's monotheistic argument? The Medrash says ben shalosh shanim. The Rambam says he was memches shanim. What's the pshat? The Rambam doesn't just say things. The Rambam for sure had a mocker that we don't have the Medrash today, but the Rambam had a mocker for sure that it says this common in Yonim that says, and we know this, we don't have such a mocker, but this it's a mocker. It's a muzar as a Medrash. The Rishonim didn't just create things out of a vacuum. It was Midrash. We don't have anymore. Or they heard it Balter from their Ebbes. I saw an interesting thing recently. I saw from the Chizkuni. It says like a Pelodica thing. Chizkuni says that the Pshat Eretz Gzeira, that for the Soil Azazel, that was Eretz Gzeira, he says because if it wouldn't be Eretz Gzeira, B'chal the Mefarshim say that the Gzeira is Moshe Nigzar, it's cut away, it's cut off, taken out of circulation, meaning Eretz Lezerua. So the Chizkuni says that if it would have been a place, a Makim Zerua, that mitzad the inyan of the Sar Lazazel, because it was shay of all the negativity, all the Avedis, that the place would never ever grow anything again. In other words, it would destroy the entire land. Wherever the Sar Lazazel would die, nothing would ever grow there again. Right? So the Mefarshim talk about the Chizkuni. Where did the Chizkuni get that from? It's a big chiddush. It makes like a statement. They say the Pashtas, the Chizkuni had he had a medrash, he had a Kabbalah from somewhere. Good, we don't know. We don't have the medrash today. There's a lot of medrashim we don't have. There's a medrashim we found only recently. Yalkut medrash Teman. There's a lot of things which we didn't have, and this, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, there's something very interesting over there. We don't know exactly who they were, and it's collected over different centuries also. It's not all from the same genre. I'll tell you something very interesting. I once heard from Lawrence Cheshvan, who's a big professor. He's considered to be the world preeminent expert on the Dead Sea Scrolls today. He told me, like that it says in the Chumash that Rashi says Nakadolov, Nakadolov, and if the Rabba Laksav, so if you Derish, Ayoy, this is partial, Nakadolov, Ayoy. He said to me, in ancient writings, that's how they used to edit things. If you wanted to emphasize something, or de-emphasize, at that time, they used to do with Nakud. How interesting is that? It's not just in Torah. We have it today, left over Torah, but he says in the Dead Sea Scrolls, there's dots on certain things. And there's a whole system of Nakud Olav and not Nakud. The system that Rashi talks about from Chazal, it's actually, you couldn't edit. It's a manuscript. How are you going to edit it? You start erasing, you can't erase. So, there's an unspoken code that
Was the bold and underlined?
Yeah, like bold, italicized. In those days it was Nakud. And not from under. The Nakud was on top. That was just interesting, whichever. It explains certain things, by the way, which are not so clear, but when you know that this is a...
I've seen it on old Matzevis, by the way.
Really?
600-700
Really?
years old also.
It could be the Zelbadach of Matzevi. You can't say Zazach. Anyway.
What did you answer next time?
Yeah, we were in the middle of Lichtenstein's answer.
So I tell what I told Lichtenstein. Well, first of all, I'm not finished with it. We're in conversation, but the Nukud is this. What did Avraham Avinu write? What did he say? I don't know what Avraham Avinu said. He said whatever he said was good in his time. It's like the Rambam is given the Meir Nevuchim. Who learns the Meir Nevuchim today? In his day, they needed to say for Meir Nevuchim. Today, it's not dafka. You can understand like Leibdiki Ad Meir Nevuchim. There's many differences for them. The things that the Rambam says in Meir Nevuchim that are important are already found in Maral, and you found it in Yena. You don't need to. Nobody. I mean, like the Charedish world. Let's sit down to learn Meir Nevuchim today. You sit and go through the arguments of. You ever learned the Rasag Zemunas Vadeus? You ever looked at the Rasag Zemunas Vadeus? It's translated in Hebrew. He's talking about the Almahukas and Pukas, these crazy people who walk to Zaytainen as I don't know what they tainen. I have to go back and find out what Alma had said and what this one said and that one said to know what had been. Besides, you go and wrote a sefer for his time. It's not the Geya today. The Rambam is halachas. The Mishnah Torah, that's Rambam. It doesn't mean the Rambam is not Meir Nevuchim. The Rambam answered his generation what they needed. But the real eternal contribution. What Avraham Avinu told people is negate to people who lived 4,000 years ago, whatever he told them. Nicht mit dem hat the Numen dimension. But was da Avraham Avinu the Numen mention? That he was Avraham Avinu. That schlichtly milase, was hat gesucht, sucht nach Nasser Sorgen. Das hat mit dem hat the Numen mention. With Mesiras Nefesh.
Chesed.
Avraham personified Chesed, Yitzchak personified Gevura. But he's called Kuli Mesiras Nefesh. This is the Akeda that the Ebrish tells him that, Kach no, I once explained a person could do Mesiras Nefesh. It's not Mesiras Nefesh, it's self-expression. When he blows himself up for his own cause, or because he wants to have some kind of afterlife, it's not Mesiras Nefesh. And then Tzuyem's Nefesh. It's Fakeret, it's self-expression. This is who I am, I want to be a... Bei Avraham Avinu soll gehen auf ein Berg, keiner wird nicht sein. If the zugesagt bei Yitzchak Karol Chazora, so wird seiner, shecht him up. Nobody's even there. Nobody's even there to witness it. There's not going to be a picture on Facebook the next day. Okay?
The bris was to be publicized.
Huh?
The bris was to be publicized.
The bris was public. That Avraham Avinu, he expressed himself. Here is it. That previously Avraham wasn't really Mesa Nefesh. That really was just self-expression. Understand? This is the Nekuda. Avraham Avinu had Aufgeheben the Welt durch sein Avraham Avinu. Well, how did the Rebbe affect people the way he did? Because he was the Rebbe, that's why. Obviously the medium is Torah. The Rebbe was a Rebbe. They learned Torah with Yidden. They learned Torah, taught Torah, thousands of hours of Torah, and the hundreds of Sfarim and so on and so forth. But nicht a word, there was a teaching that, no, that's not the pshat. Anyway, that's the Nekuda.
Days a year is enough. It's demanding more.
The beard is looking beautiful.
Thank you. So Shabbos at the oil, experience the Shem. Me, we'll do it after Facebook. Okay? Shukran, thank you. The diverse crowd.
Yeah. Bigger.
What's that?
Okay, it was great. All right. Never gonna need two back there.
Fine,
Yeah, somebody either driving, somebody's driving. Shukran.
Yeah, I know, but it was a delay, and I had to do Sudas.
Okay, Akiva, I'm gonna turn this off.
Shukran, let me, I'll close it.
Is Akiva there nearby?
Akiva's still here, yeah.
Yeah,
Is he nearby?
yeah, I'm right here. Dave!
Okay,
did you
Akiva,
watch-
yeah, L'chaim, it was beautiful.
Oh!
Did you
I'm,
see where are you?
I'm just disappointed it's over already.
Yeah, I know, it's a little early, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, but it's beautiful.
Thank you very much.
And Mazel Tov, and you should be well, and have lots of nachas from everyone, and it's
Thank you.
as soon as Hodaah is a beautiful thing.
Yes, it is, especially on a birthday, right?
Yes, gesundheit. Gesundheit.
Thank you.
Okay, you go ahead. You go see it.
Thank you very much, Dave. Thanks for tuning in, L'chaim.
L'chaim u'bracha. L'chaim.
Chaim Akiva.
Hey, Sully! I saw Balter on for a long time. You out of jail? This is my cousin. He's in Australia, and I think they weren't allowed to breathe the last month. There was no breathing allowed, right?
3.5.
I don't know. I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy to hear there are no fires there.
Right.
You're too early. We're still in early fire season. You're not 2 months away for that.
No, because we'd have to move the hand a little bit.
Akiva, very nice.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Where was your speech? I missed it.
It was at the beginning.
Oh.
I tried to Zoom earlier. I could send you the link if you really want.
Yeah, I really want to hear you speak.
No, you
I
don't.
heard your radio broadcast. I heard your video broadcast. It was lovely.
Oh, listen, it's that time. I'm glad. I saw you tuned in earlier. Kuty spoke also.
I missed him as well. He's disappeared.
Yeah, I know. Are you able to see? Carmela was here with Risha and the.
No, I missed everybody. I must
Girls?
have come in about 1:30 or so my time. I had the kids out. Remember, it's afternoon. Nice to see you. Baruch Hashem, it's good to see you.
A little closer. Yeah, there we go. You can see, let me put close to you. What's that?
Where's he disappeared to?
He's making it bigger so you can see you.
Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't meant to be too big. You can see a big mess here.
No. It's